Alright, so we got the passenger outer tie rod end in the drill press clamped up with the tapered reamer, and we're going to ream out this hole that was for the steering stabilizer stud on a Chevy truck. Now it's going to be used for a normal 1-ton tie rod end. So more or less we got to ream it out until it will fit this stud. Most people I see do it in a vise with a drill, and it's not a very good way to make it straight or square with this flat surface here, which is what you want. So first time I did it in the vise with a hand drill, and it didn't turn out too well. I had to grind a little bit on this surface here to make it flat with the or square with the tie rod end, so I could use the cure, the little plastic bushing to keep the tie rod from rotating. So I think that's why mine didn't work right, is because mine wasn't square with that surface, and the cure bushing actually cracked and broke after using it for a while. So we're gonna make this one perfectly square because it's clamped to two 3/4 inch cold roll bars here, which I know are flat. So this is probably the right way to do this. Now, to keep from removing this over and over to check and see if we got the size right, I'm just going to measure the diameter roughly of the larger tapered end with dial caliper I have here, and that way when I get about, I don't know, 50 or 70 thousandths shy, then I'll start going slow and checking it every time, and then I'll take it out the last couple times, maybe finish it up by hand. But I want to get this whole thing square for the most part. $650 thousandths. 700 or 682 thousandths. We're getting close to 700, which is my goal, and then I'm going to start hand checking it. And that's what you do not want to happen. So I had my clamps a little bit loose, and I'm lucky that the reamer didn't just break. So let me fix that. Now we're at 700 thousandths. Alright, so I reamed out the taper until the larger end is pretty much 700 thousandths of an inch. Because the goal is this stud, the threaded portion, is 580 thousandths of an inch. And it's pretty close, but I need to ream a little bit more because I can't even get the stud all the way through the other side, and you'll see. The idea is you want this stud taper to bottom out, but not have the threads stick all the way out. You want to be able to have the castle nut tightened and still be able to get the cotter pin in. And in addition, you don't want this too close or too far away for that little bushing, the cure from WFO. So I have to be very careful to not ream this out too far, otherwise it's gonna just be all loosey-goosey and do the same thing it did before, where the tie rod can rotate, and we don't want that. This is the cure bushing. You can see how it's cracked around the edges. The way that this is supposed to get installed is like this. So it's only cracked around the dust boot part, so it's probably okay. Here's the old tie rod end. Goes on about that far, and you can see that's what was causing the issue there. This one has got more space than the other one. You see we reamed it about right, because when it's bottomed out, the cotter key slot on the nut lines right up. Before, the old one had gone too far, see I ground it here because it wasn't square, and then also I had a washer underneath this in order for me to be able to put a cotter pin on, which is all kinds of wrong. So let's see, we'll bolt it up here and see if we have to go further to make that bushing flat. And yeah, see if I'm not gonna touch it yet. So we might just have to keep going or put washers on this side. So you can see it's still gonna make a problem. Because that's gotta be squared up to there. So I gotta decide if I wanna put washers on this side or on this side. Here's the example of the old one. So that butts all the way up square with it. Or damn near square. See, I might even have to go that far. The nut barely is on the cotter key slot, so we'll ream it a little bit more and we'll check again. So, actually on second thought, that tie rod end down at the end had wobbled all over the place. I held up the other tie rod end with the cure spacer, and that butted up perfectly and there was no gap. So you can't add metal back. So I'm going to do one of two things. I'm going to go down to the auto parts store. If they don't have a new tie rod end, I'm going to go get some washers and space it for the meantime, but I'm pretty sure that's a cheap tie rod end and it's out of spec because the nice Napa one I have has more meat on it. So yeah, every tie rod end's different. It's just how it's made, but the rest of the 1-ton steering is a straight install. It's pretty simple. This one is the one you got to fine tune, because if you don't do it right, you're going to have a little bit of shake, a little bit of dead spot in your steering wheel. Let's see, I got the different fenders that match the front clip finally. I got a hood on the side of the house I'm painting, and then got to repaint the whole Jeep. But for now, that's what she looks like. Here's the old fender. It's a nice wall hanger. One problem leads to another. The reason the old tie rod was bent was because I bent it to get around the track bar mount. Because when you do under the knuckle with a straight tie rod end, guess where it bumps into? The bolt on the track bar, the stock location. So I guess I will be having to raise the stock track bar mount up to here. I have an adjustable track bar so I can change the length, so that's no problem, but that's gotta go. And I'm gonna do it right this time, because when you bend that tie rod it just leaves a bunch of room. But now with the straight tie rod end, and I got that shimmed just correctly on the tie rod end right there, there's no rotation in the steering. But I gotta cut off that because my steering radius, my turning radius is terrible. That is full lock to the right. Which, okay, hold on, let's look full lock to the left. That's full lock left. You should see how much scrub it has on this side. Yeah. So I will be cutting the track bar mount off now to raise it so I can actually have a good turning radius. As everyone knows, if you don't have a Jeep with good turning radius, then what's the point of having a Jeep? You see it's been repaired multiple times, but there's actually a crack. It's already been damaged. So, needed to be replaced anyway. And you can see the mount is pretty beat pretty bad anyway. Let's put the new one about here if there's enough clearance, otherwise we'll have to move it over to the side here or back more. And we're going to have to shorten this track bar up quite a bit. Yeah, that's going to hit the coil spring. We're going to have to shorten the track bar. So now we can go full lock to the right. So you don't have that clearance issue with the track bar mount. It actually clears pretty nicely now. So you can get a better look at it. But now I just need to relocate the track bar mount since we're not really going to drive down the road without a track bar. One step closer to getting it correct. Ah, man, there's too much work that has to be done on this thing. So that about wraps it up for tonight. I'll update you guys with another video on where I decide to relocate the track bar. I'm going to make my own bracket. It's going to be probably more inboard than that spring in the original track bar mount, but it's going to be higher on the top of the axle tube. I'm going to have to shorten the track bar or just make a whole new one. So we'll see where it goes.